Hello students, welcome once again. This is the second part of the chapter, The Adventure by Jayant Narlikar. The audience was in no mood to listen to anything. Clearly, old customs had changed now. They no longer believed the chaired person and his false promises. They asked him to move aside, as they only wanted to hear the speaker. But the professor continued talking as he believed he would control the unfriendly audience. They soon started throwing tomatoes, eggs, and other objects towards him. He kept on trying bravely, but the audience started moving towards him to remove him physically from the platform. In the crowd, the professor was nowhere to be seen. The professor was talking to Rajendra. He narrated everything to him which he saw and lived for those few days. He said he was found in the Azad Maidan next morning and now he is back to the real world, which he is familiar with. He wanted to know where had he spent the last 2 days when he was unconscious. Rajendra was amazed by the narrative and he replied after a while. He asked the professor what he was thinking just before his collision with the truck. Professor replied that he was thinking about catastrophe theory. He further told Rajendra not to smile, showing excess satisfaction. It is nothing like that, my mind was playing tricks with me. To win the argument, the professor took out the printed page and Rajendra was surprised. Professor told Rajendra that he had unintentionally slipped the bhagar into his left pocket and he intended to return it the next morning. But the book got torn off and lost in the large crowd in the Azad Maidan. This page is evidence from the book that I had stolen it. Rajendra once again read the page. It described how Vishwas Rao missed the bullet. He then showed him his own copy of Bhagar and the text were different. He said that Vishwas Rao was hit by the bullet. Rajendra told the professor that by reading the evidence, he had begun to realize it's not a fantasy. He wanted the professor to know some facts. Rajendra explained to him that this was a catastrophic experience which he had just felt. Professor told him to continue. He told the professor to apply the catastrophic theory to the Battle of Panipat. The Abdali and the Maratha army were both equally strong in terms of troops and forces. Their shell was also comparable, but the victory depended on the leadership and morale of the troops. The point where the Marathas were killed was the turning point of the battle. Uncle of Vishwas Rao rushed into the crowd and was never seen again. No one knows whether he survived or died. The troops lost their morale and fighting spirit and it was a defeat for them. Rajendra continued by saying that the torn page that he read was about how the events took another turn and everything happened differently from what they knew. The professor added similar statements are made about Battle of Waterloo where several texts talk about it might have been. Rajendra then made his second point, which was how we experience reality. It is via our senses or with the help of instruments. But is reality really limited to what we see or is it a demonstration? Rajendra, while gathering his thoughts, told the professor that in one world the electron may be found here and in another it may be found in another place, but in the third world it may be at a different locations. Once the observer knows about the correct placing of the electrons at every world, it might happen that an alternative world exists at the same time. The professor asked him whether there are any contacts between these many worlds. Rajendra told him it might not happen. He said in both the worlds, the electron is orbiting the nucleus of an atom. The professor added an example of planets and sun. Rajendra said not quite as in the case of the planets we know about the path that is followed by the planets. But in the case of electrons, it is different. When an electron is in state 1, it is in higher energy. In state 2, it is in lower energy. It might happen that the electron jumps from a higher to a lower position. These transitions happen at a microscopic level, but what if it happened at the macroscopic level? Professor told him that he went to another world and came back again. Rajendra said it is the only explanation he can offer right now. According to him, in catastrophic situations, different alternatives can exist, and somewhere the observer can experience one reality one at a time. Rajendra added that the professor made a transition and experienced two worlds one at a time, one in which he lives and another one where he spent his last 2 days. This world has the history they know about and another one has different facts. The Battle of Panipat had divisions of facts in both worlds. He said that the professor didn't travel past or future, but was in the present and experiencing different worlds. There may be more worlds which may arise out of division at different points of time. Professor asked as to why only he made the transition. Rajendra answered that he didn't know why he made the transition, but he could guess it. At the time of the collision, the professor was thinking about catastrophe theory and its role in the war. Maybe he was thinking about the Battle of Panipat at that moment. The neurons in his brain acted as a trigger and made the transition. The professor confessed that he was thinking about what would happen if the battle had gone the other way, and he was about to address this at his 1000th presidential address. Rajendra laughed and said now he can happily recount his real life experience than just wondering about it. The professor was serious and told him that at his 1000th presidential address at Azad Maidan, he was rudely interrupted by the crowd and speaker. The Professor Gaitonde, who was defending his chair on the stage, had to disappear and he would never be seen again at another meeting. He also conveyed his regrets to the organizers of the seminar. Thank you, students. I hope you have understood the chapter in detail. You can go through the videos of the summary and the detailed description given in part 1 and part 2. And thorough reading of the chapter is required for better understanding. Thanks once again.